Mr Deputy President, I'd like to start with my contribution to the Budget Take Note debate by congratulating the former Treasurer, Gladys Berejiklian, on the outstanding work she has done as Treasurer, and acknowledge the former Premier, Mike Baird, for their work together to produce this budget. I also note, today being International Women's Day, that of course Gladys Berejiklian was the first female Treasurer of New South Wales, and indeed is now the first coalition female Premier of New South Wales, and may there be many more. Not only has the government maintained record investment on city and state shaping infrastructure projects, but the government has simultaneously wiped out the state's net debt and delivered a cash positive result in 2015 and 2016. That's wiped out the state's debt, the first Treasurer in the history of the state to do such a thing. After years and years of Labor mismanagement, the work of successive Liberal Treasurers, Mike Baird, Andrew Constance and Gladys Berejiklian, has meant that general government sector net debt has now fallen from $5.5 billion at 30th of June 2015 to negative $57 million at the 30th of June 2016. That means New South Wales is in a cash-positive position for the first time in our record. And that's a great credit to the former Treasurer Gladys Berejiklian and, of course, former Treasurers Mike Baird and Andrew Constance, and a great credit to the coalition government. Our fiscal discipline and asset recycling strategy has allowed us to invest record amounts on infrastructure while securing and maintaining our AAA credit rating. The unprecedented infrastructure program is also supporting our booming jobs market, a solid housing construction industry, and helping to boost consumer confidence and business investment. Standard & Poor's has also reaffirmed New South Wales' AAA credit rating again.
Someone's awake.
That we have been, well, we're all awake to this because this is great news, and the state and the people need to hear it. We need to hear it again and again in this chamber. That we have been able to maintain this AAA credit rating whilst continuing to ensure quality of opportunity for all our citizens, no matter where they live or what their circumstances is a positive that, quite rightly, is the envy of the rest of Australia. Let me turn to infrastructure. New South Wales is now the infrastructure capital of Australia, and this government has worked hard to establish a strong infrastructure plan for the future of New South Wales to cope with the growing demand for transport and road services across the state and growing population. Over the next 15 years, transport infrastructure will need to support a 40% more increase in train trips and 30% more car trips. That's 40% more train trips and 30% more car trips. And unlike those lost and wasted 15 years of opportunity under the last Labor government, this government is taking this bull by the horns and confronting this very complex challenge. That is why the government's budget forecasts a record infrastructure investment of $73.3 billion over the next 4 years, with state-funded investment in infrastructure averaging $12.1 billion a year over the next 4 years. $12.1 billion a year. More than half of the government's infrastructure program is dedicated to transport and road spending, Mr Deputy President. Over the next 4 years, to years 2019-20, transport will comprise 56.6% of the total infrastructure spending in this state. This has increased considerably since when we were elected, when spending on transport made up 33% of the infrastructure program, a dramatic increase in percentage of spending on transport infrastructure. And as members are aware, we have committed to several transport projects, all opposed by Labor and the Greens, who cannot seem to muster the political strength to develop a legitimate alternate plan to the congestion and overcrowding on our streets and public transport. The projects funded in this budget will work to grow and improve existing services and projects, as well as constructing new state-of-the-art services. The fully automated Sydney Metro rail network will operate 30 trains an hour through the CBD in each direction, which is a train every 2 minutes each way. This means the railway network across Greater Sydney will have room for an additional 100,000 train customers during peak hour travel times. No one has taken on this challenge. we've taken this challenge on. The budget fully funds the Sydney Metro City and the South West rail lines, which has a budget range of between $11.5 and $12.5 billion. For the 2016-2017 years, the government has allocated $1.3 billion for the Sydney Metro North West, which is set to open in the first half of 2019, and has committed a further $1.4 billion for the second stage of the Metro, all while maintaining a AAA credit rating, all while maintaining a budget without debt. The government is also providing $406.6 million during the 2016 and 17 current year to provide enhancements to the existing infrastructure and fleet to provide increased and improved rail services, which will include express services to Western Sydney. We will also invest $518.4 million in the next generation rail fleet, $154.2 million in fixing the older locomotive stock, and more than $1 billion over the next 4 years on the Northern Sydney Freight Corridor.
What about the southern?
Importantly, money invested on transport is about making the customer experience of Sydney trains the best in the world. By delivering modern, secure and accessible transport improvements to the tune of $280 million during the 2016-17 year, the government will ensure that Transport in New South Wales is always customer focused. As members are aware, I'm a strong supporter of light rail, so it's great to see the budget sticking firmly to the role that light rail will play in the future transport mix of Sydney, despite the shameful backflip of the Labor Party after the last election, and particularly the Honourable Penny Sharp when she ran for the seat of Newtown supporting light rail during that campaign. Light rail is an idea whose time has come again, but this time a 21st century version of light rail. It's the preeminent example of reliable and sustainable mode of public transport, and it will work to ease the pressure on Sydney's roads caused by congestion with cars and buses. It is for this reason the budget has set aside $1.9 billion for the CBD and South East light rail line, as well as $142 million for the Newcastle light rail, and $64 million towards planning for the Parramatta light rail.
What about Narra's light rail? Shoalhaven light rail?
And you missed the money I got.
What about the very fast?
I might refer to buses
Very
now,
fast
Mr
train to
Deputy
Queen.
President.
Yeah, very fast.
It's important.
Very fast train to Queen.
It's important that the government maintain a sound mix of public transport options that needs to go beyond rail and light rail.
That's right.
Teleport machines.
The government is improving the bus network with $233.8 million to be spent over the 2016-17 year on bus priority infrastructure, which will support Sydney's bus future by working on strategic corridors to increase timetable reliability and reduce delays. Anyone who's used the L90 from the city to Palm Beach, indeed, so have I, knows that the Northern Beaches bus services are in need of dramatic attention. The introduction of a B line will deliver better bus services for customers travelling between the Northern Beaches and the Sydney CBD.
Why do bees need to
The
travel?
B line will provide more frequent and reliable bus services, reduce congestion and create shorter travelling times. It will also be a simpler bus network which will improve safety and local air quality as well as minimising traffic noise. In addition to this, the government will deliver 218 new buses to cater for services around New South Wales at a cost of $108.4 million over the 2016-17 year. Let me turn to roads, Mr Deputy President.
Yeah, Princes Highway. Tell us the good
We
news.
spend a lot of money on the Princes Highway, of course. The government has also been working on significant and unprecedented historic road projects to ease congestion, as well as plan for population and employment growth throughout the state, not just in the city but throughout the state. The government is investing $16.8 billion in the amazing $16.8 billion in the amazing WestConnex project, which involves widening and extending the M4 and M5 and joining them together to form a continuous free-flowing motorway with connections to northern and southern Sydney. That's a game changer for road transport in our city, and it's a game changer for small businesses and freight businesses moving around freight around our city from our congested streets, which reduces costs for small businesses and creates more employment opportunities. The project is being
I like it.
Gay motorway.
the project is being delivered in 3 stages. Stage 1 from Parramatta to the city. To the City West Link, and anyone who has driven on the M4, and I'm sure we all have, and I do a lot now going out to the Blue Mountains, can see the massive investment now actually delivering huge road projects underway out there and on the M4. Just amazing infrastructure. And I sit there and I see the amount of fluoro vests, I see the amount of contractors working, and I can see a lot of jobs and a lot of money going around the economy by that project. Stage 2 is the new M5 East, including the enhanced Sydney Gateway. So anyone who goes out on the M5, which I do as well, and that's actually quite a bad bottleneck because it was badly planned by Labor in the first time. The fact is that, again, you see hundreds of fluoro vests and hundreds of contractor trucks working there, and you know you're churning the investment through the economy and creating more jobs and wealth. And Stage 3 from the City West Link to St Peters. WestConnex will deliver more than $20 billion of economic benefits to the state. $20 billion. $20 billion, which Labor opposed. Voted against it. $20 billion economic benefits. Will serve. It's a shame Labor's not here to hear this speech, but I know they're in their office tuned in. $20 billion of economic benefits will serve more than 480,000 travellers per day. Wow. That's how many people use the WestConnex, and is estimated to help drivers bypass up to 52 sets of traffic lights. Asset recycling and leasing is part of the formula. We have no debt. Just remember that. The huge benefits are for commuters, for residents in South West Sydney, commuters, and of course businesses and jobs and growth. The government will also invest $3 billion on NorthConnex. Now, anyone who goes out on the M2, which I happen to do occasionally now too, will see the massive construction work going on the M2 connecting to the NorthConnex. Again, so many fluoro jackets and so many subcontractors and cranes. And you can see the infrastructure, the money, the investment that the state has made churning through the local economies, through tradesmen and contractors, and creating more jobs. The government is investing $146.7 million throughout 2016-17 on the Western Sydney Growth Roads program, which will involve major road upgrades and expansions in order to accommodate the growth of population and employment in Western Sydney. So that's $146 million separately to all these projects on roadways in Western Sydney that are linked to jobs growth. And this will include North West and South West growth centres and the Western Sydney employment lands. And the Western Sydney employment lands are, of course, next to the new Western Sydney Airport site, and those roads are being massively upgraded as we speak. And the promise of 30,000 to 60,000 jobs in a decade around that area is just phenomenal. The objective of this roads program is to link the Greater Sydney workforce and business community with broader employment opportunities and markets, including through national and international gateways such as Badgerys Creek. So let me turn to the issue of the environment in the budget, Mr Deputy President. It's not just about jobs and not just about infrastructure. There's other elements of the budget we should talk about. And let's talk about the environment. Recent years have seen the market environment in New South Wales changing with a number of coal-based generators across the state proposed to close and a shift away from coal-based energy driven by market, might I say, driven by markets, not by ideology. Renewable energy sources continue to increase, with around 1/3 of installed capacity in New South Wales in the form of renewable technologies such as solar photovoltaics, wind and hydro generation. And we heard from the Minister only yesterday, about the new solar plant at Moree. And the Honourable Ben Franklin was at that opening. I'd love to have been there because nothing impresses me more than renewable energy projects that are sustainable and supported by the community, and to hear that the local community wants more of them is just amazing. Fantastic. Also, total electricity demand per capita in New South Wales has declined since the year 2009, even as gross state product has continued to grow. Let me turn to the arts, another portfolio that's represented in this chamber now, which is great to see. We haven't only invested in job-creating infrastructure and transport. The arts and culture sector in New South Wales is the strongest in Australia. Let me just emphasise that. The arts and culture sector in this state is the strongest in Australia, with our cultural institutions attracting and retaining the people and the skills that the state needs to compete in an increasing global arts and cultural economy. New South Wales is home to almost 40% of Australia's creative arts industries and makes up over 1/3 of Australia's creative industry employment. There are roughly 800 galleries, cultural institutions, museums and libraries and conservatoriums which support a vibrant and creative New South Wales. Out of the 28 major performing arts groups in Australia, 10 are located within our state. Our institutions include the Sydney Opera House, the Art Gallery of New South Wales, the Australian Museum and the State Library of New South Wales, which provides a focus for Sydney's cultural life while supporting the regions through their lending and touring collections, educational programs, off-site presentations and online access to resources and their digitalised collections. Yes. Sydney also plays a vital part to the state's art and cultural sector, as it is the home to Australia's largest creative community across fields including film, theatre, music, dance and festival events. This sector supports the growth of our economy, accounting for 6% of the state's employment, and plays a significant role in attracting tourists to New South Wales, with 11.4 million international and domestic cultural and heritage visitors spending $11.2 billion in this state in 2015.
That's amazing.
Mr Deputy President, this budget aims to continue to strengthen and support arts and culture in New South Wales and is committed to several projects which continue to stimulate this growth. $128.6 million will be invested over 4 years on the construction of the new and upgraded production studio, rehearsal performance venues at Walsh Bay Arts Precinct. $12 million will be invested for the Sydney Opera House to design its upgrades to entry points and foyers, a new creative learning and function centres and improvements to the concert hall as part of the Stage 1 of the Opera House's decade of renewal. Mr President, as the Treasurer at the time said, very few jurisdictions anywhere today would be able to match the economic conditions and the budget position of New South Wales, especially now that we've wiped out New South Wales government net debt. The 2016-17 budget delivers surpluses across the forward estimates, zero net debt, a AAA credit rating, record spending in services and record spending in infrastructure, strong jobs and economic growth, low unemployment, strong business and consumer confidence. We are leading the nation and we are in an enviable position. But as the Treasurer and the Premier of the day said, they are also labour-proofing our economy for the future. And a good government doesn't rest on its laurels. It continues to work hard on what it hopes to achieve for the future. I commend the budget to the House.